So the hardest part to any project, at least for me, is just getting started. And if that's ever been you, stay tuned because we're going to get into it. Welcome back to the Jam Shed and our latest episode of the Shed Bench. And for those of you that are new to the channel, the Shed Bench, quite simply, are just projects that are coming into the bench that I'm working on, and I'm sharing them with you as passive content to explore and, again, to continue to be curious and create. And so on the Shed Bench today, right here, is a 1990 made in Mexico Fender Strat body that I teed up in the last video. And I said it'd be cool to take this particular guitar and let's get it back into service. Let's get a neck and electronics and all the rest of it and get it going. So this will be a multi-part series of seeing this thing come to fruition. We're waiting on parts to come, specifically the neck and some locking tuners. And I did happen to go through my parts bin, we'll call it, and I dug this thing out. And if you're going, well, what is that? That is a loaded pickguard, and no, it is not what I said I was going to load it with. I thought, well, maybe I'll do a humbucker in the bridge and then single coil in the middle and neck positions. But the guitar has other plans now. It's going to be an SSS, so single coils all the way around. Why? Because I already have parts, and there was no need to part ways with money to make this guitar functional and find a use for it. And here's what's really cool about this pickguard. I bought it a while back, and this is actually a USA Highway 1. That's what this came out of, which is a series of Fender guitars. They were considered, American Strats, more along the standard line, but had some different appointments. But one of the coolest appointments about this guitar were the pickups, and they became, I wouldn't say legendary, because that's giving some mythic, backstory and support to something I don't believe is necessarily mythic, but it has pickups in it that became, to the rest of the world, probably more sought after, including myself, because my tone acquisition syndrome said I need to have those pickups. I need to try them out. And so I did, and that's why I got this. So this was from a 2003 Highway 1 Stratocaster, and I bought it loaded, which means it had all the electronics in it. Everything was ready to go. Now, the reason why I know this is a 2003 is twofold. One, that's what the listing said, and the potentiometers on, I wouldn't say higher end, but some of the potentiometers, specifically, I know for sure like CTS pots or CTS potentiometers often have date codes, and these do date back to 2003. And even some more budget-friendly potentiometers also have date codes, but that's one way you can at least get an idea of the electronics you have in here. But that tracks with, these are Highway 1 pickups that are loaded in this pickguard. Now, I'm not going to labor that any further. What I am going to labor, though, is that we have electronics, and that is what this guitar is going to get retrofitted. And that is the plan for today, is to load this pickguard into our Strat body and to get this project kicked off. Because as I said at the top of our episode today, the hardest part of a project often is just getting the thing started. So let's get this thing mocked up and loaded. But before I do that, I am going to change my positioning here and get some things set up. And I'm going to come right back, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're going to connect this and what I'm doing, because some of you might find that valuable, and maybe you'll want to implement it when you're doing this for several different reasons. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I made some adjustments, and I've got everything that we need, and it's all ready to go. And what we're going to do is talk just very briefly before I get this on here and we secure it to the body. I want to talk a little bit about this connector, and you can also see the same connector on the body here in the picture below, or in the camera view here below. These are called T-plug connectors, and they're really cool in the sense that you can actually take the hot and the well, either side of your wiring, let's just call it that for simplicity, and you can then put these connectors on there, and then they become quick disconnects. And that's why I do this on all my guitars, where I have pickups secured directly to the pickguard, and even in some instances more so on humbuckers, because that's what I typically, in the bridge position, I might be swapping out quickly. I do this as well, because it's just like take it out, swap it, clip it in, no soldering that needs to be done. And then as I've done this over the years with different pickups, It just makes it easier for a quick install. I don't have to get the soldering iron out, and I can pull things out quickly and load them in. So it might be something you may find when you're doing some modifications that work really well for you, because with these loaded pick guards, like with a Strat, it's all connected and you only have 2 wires that you really need to physically connect. Now, you certainly want to make sure that this is wired properly on the other end, because you have to have a ground wire for the bridge. As you see here, I'm pointing to that. That has to be also included in your wiring. So you don't want to make that mistake. You want to make sure it's wired correctly. Now, I'm not here to do a tutorial on this, but it is a cool little efficiency I would share with you that if you're ever interested, you can find these on Amazon, fairly reasonable, and it makes the job go so much quicker, and it's super clean. As you can see, this wiring is fairly clean. It could use like maybe a zip tie right here, but outside of that, it's good. All right, so let's go ahead and get this mocked up. And then we'll do a little test, and I'm just gonna do this right here in real time. I'm not gonna do the speed up thing that I've done in the past, because this shouldn't take us too long. Now, as I'm getting this set up here, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna, as you see here, I'm gonna get this thing connected, and we're gonna get it. There it is. That's all it took. Just a little connection, and it is ready to go. Essentially, this thing is ready to be plugged in, and it should pick up a signal very easily. And you know what? We can test that here. Let's see. And you will not hear this on camera, but this will help me to ensure that I have good signal. But the way I test this is I plug this in, I have this amp, this one way up here, that's on right now, and I don't have it piped into the system. But what I would do is I would start by going to the bridge position, and I just give it a little tap. And if I can hear it, which I can hear it in here, but I'm not putting that through to you guys, then I know I'm good. Another thing you could do is you wanted to check to make sure your ground was good. You could actually take the other end of a guitar cable and a multimeter and do a continuity test. And if that's way technical, don't worry about that. This is the surefire way to know that you're all set for the most part, that you've got a good connection if you have a pre-wired or something that you've purchased that's already pre-wired, and the expectation is that it would come wired correctly, and if you connected it in this manner, it's going to work. So then I just go through the positions. I go to the middle, I tap that, that's working, and I go up here to the neck position, I tap that, and that is also working. So once I know that, then I know I'm good. I can go ahead and continue on with the modification, or in this case, the build. And so what we do is because these cables are a little bulky, and when you're doing this, so I actually shrink wrap these. This is like a boat connector, waterproof type, rubber gasket that you put over it, and it's a heat shrink is what I was trying to say here. It's a heat shrink that does have like a glue, almost like a hot glue. So as you heat it up and you squeeze it together, it actually almost waterproof seals these things. Now, it's not for the waterproofing that I do it. It's because it's a little more rigid, and it can take a little bit more punishment. But the other reason why is because it hangs onto the wire. So if you accidentally yank it, you're likely not to pull the wire out of let's say the connector. You may pull it out of your solder from the input jack, or maybe even from one of the pickups, but it's just nice because it's more rigid, and if you're going to take it apart, you've got a nice rigid thing that you can pull on rather than trying to yank on the wires or grab on here where it's just hard to get a hold of. So I do that, but that can be problematic as you're putting these in, because it does add a little thickness to that. So I'm going to wrestle with this here to get it in there, and just making sure all our wires are going through that center channel nice and neatly. Everything is sitting flat. That's the key to this. Make sure that this is sitting flat so that you're not going to have any weird offset bulging that's happening there. And then you get it all set up and you go put strings on it, and you're very unhappy with how it's looking because you didn't move a wire out of the way. How do I know that? Because I've done it one too many times. So I'm talking to myself as I'm sharing this with you. The next thing I like to do is then I'll start with putting in the pickguard screws. Now, I'm not particular. I know some guys who do this work on the regular are very particular about how they like to have things lined up. I typically, as you can see here, I was just trying to find one of the holes that made sense for me to start. And I often will just use a screwdriver to get them started by hand. I think that often is the best way. Now, you don't always have to do that. I have my drill sitting here, and I could make this go a lot quicker. So if you're wondering why I'm not putting them all the way down yet, it's quite simple. Sometimes you can have some alignment challenges with a pick guard depending on, you know, how it was cut, especially some of these aftermarket ones. The holes might not line up as nice as you think. And so if you put, leave a little space around these, at least that's what I found. Again, your mileage may vary. If I leave them up and raised, this thing still has some play in it, which means it can wiggle and move a little bit. And sometimes you can coax these things in without having to do any filing modification to them to give a little bit more wiggle room to make it all seat nicely. Sometimes, not all the time, but many times you'll find that you don't have to do that extra step, and sometimes it is necessary. Let me just be clear, because I love to take the liberty to say, let me talk out of both sides of my mouth, because sometimes it works that way and other times it doesn't. And I'm sure most of you, if you've ever done anything like this, you know that you're never too far away from a project turning into a dumpster fire. Now, as I'm finishing up this little portion of it, I wanted to hit on one other thing as I'm going to secure these down. They're doing great. I actually will not use the drill. These feel good. So one of my things here, and it's not a pet peeve, it's just whoever goes out of their way to Hulk tighten these things down, stop that. You don't need to like give it the kung fu grip here and over tighten these things. It just takes a little bit. So as you're using your fingers to tighten, that's what I do. I take this like this, and I'm just using my fingers. I don't put a lot of tension because it's not going to go anywhere. I mean, it's just on there to be secure, and you don't have to over tighten it, because what'll happen is as soon as you blow out the hole that the screw is going down into, then it just isn't going to hold that great. And once you do it, it's done. Now, there is a threshold to this. I've had some blow out, and of course it's best to fix them. But if it never has to happen from Jump Street, then you never have to worry about it. So just take care. These things don't need to be crazily tightened down. It just needs to be finger tight and then a smidge more. And if you feel that as soon as you get to that stopping point, like right here, I'm at that stopping point, go just a little bit more. That is all you need to secure a pickguard to a guitar. So for those of you who are new to doing this, and you're like, I might want to try this someday, you don't have to over tighten. You can take your time and secure it, and it does not have to be to Hulk-like tensions. You shouldn't have to, literally like twist your screwdriver apart just to get the pickguard secure. And then I like to just go around and give it one more little test. I'm not putting any major pressure on it. That's just how I like to do it. I'm not saying my way is the right way. I'm saying that's just how I enjoy doing it. Just again, to make sure everything is secure, not super overly tightened like that last one. And this one, they have been blown out. And at some point, I'll repair that. I'll remedy that. There's a way you can do that. It's really simple. Just use a couple toothpicks. You slice them off. You tap them down in there, a little super glue, and then drill the hole out just a little bit, and then even take a little punch, and then you're all set. You can easily remedy that situation. But if it never has to happen, well, then you're in better shape. I see I've missed one because I'm over here talking. So before you get upset at me and say, hey, you just said you're going to check all of them and you missed this one, I'm going to fix that here. So we're good. So now we have done several things. Let's break it down to what we've done so far. We used the Quick Connect to hook up all the electronics, which makes it super efficient. Everything is working. We tested each position. That's done. And now we're ready for the next step, which will be to get the neck on there and get the tuners on the neck first, the machine heads. We'll get those on first, and then we'll start to fit the neck. This neck is coming raw. I know it's got a finish on it, but what I mean by that are there are no holes drilled in the back. So that'll be an interesting seeing how that fits into this neck pocket and making sure that the telemetry is right, and that maybe I might have to sand it a little bit, like level sand it with a belt sander. Hopefully we don't have to do any of that. Hopefully it's at a good height and it fits the body well. I think one of the things that's nice about modern production necks is they are made to spec for the most part. And so hopefully we have a nice fit and I don't have to send this neck back and we labor this a little bit longer. But in the interim, we have completed the first part of this project, and I'll make sure I clean it up before we bring it back. It's full of fingerprints because I've been handling it, and so have my children. So this is fun. I really do enjoy sharing these things with you and just having some passive content. And so I hope you had a nice time and maybe you had a cup of coffee alongside, you need to start inviting you guys in, because cheers, have a cup of coffee there and enjoy this content. It's been great having some time with you today in this episode of a multi-part set of series for the Shed Bench, where we're resurrecting this partscaster. And oh, by the way, partscaster means a Stratocaster built from parts. I don't know that I'm too particular on how well that's defined. Is it all Fender parts or an amalgamation of all of Fender style parts? But that's what we're doing here. We have some American and some made in Mexico parts, and we'll have some parts that I don't even know where they're coming from. That doesn't really matter. But the whole thing is we're gonna get this thing back in service and see how it turns out. So thank you everybody for joining me. Happy Wednesday, because that's when this will come out, and I look forward to seeing you all soon on the next episode of Shed Bench. Take care, everybody.